Hey guys, today on ZugZug podcast, Riot Games principal 3D character artist, a real mythic level guest, the queen of hand-painted characters, and just amazing person, Yekaterina Bourykina. Hey Katia, how's going?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
Doing great, very excited for our talk. Let's move to some questions. Small introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Yekaterina Bourykina, I go by Katia or Kata. I've been in the game industry for about 15 years. Currently been at Riot for like 8.5 years, which is definitely the longest I've ever been anywhere. I was in League of Legends for about 6 years, and I've been R&D for the rest. So
That's a huge background. How did you get into game art?
originally, I actually wanted to be a manga artist. And so I wanted to make comic books because I grew up like reading Clamp and just like everything else. And then I went to the Art Institute of Dallas. And when I first went there, they're like, "Oh yeah, you can like learn absolutely anything." And I was like, "Oh, that's super cool because this is what I want to do." And then I learned that it's like, "Oh, this is definitely not what they have." And I joined computer animation, which back then was like a game art like course for both either animated films or games. And I ended up really liking the idea of games because I actually wanted to be a concept artist first. And the idea of like designing a bunch of characters was super cool to me. And then I ended up transitioning into 3D, and it just, we had like amazing studios around us, like id and Gearbox and stuff. So I was really always inspired by them and Vigil. So I was hoping to work at them one day, but then Vigil closed down.
Why do you choose to become a character artist, not the prop or environment?
Funny. Back to school, like when I wanted to be a concept artist, I actually had a phenomenal teacher called Mark Leon. He used to work at Gearbox. And I had to take a character class, and I didn't want to because I didn't want to do 3D because I didn't like 3D. And when I joined his class,
Unbelievable.
um, it was really cool, and he was just like one he I don't know, he gave me a compliment, and he asked if I wanted to be a character artist, and I told him no, and he's like, "Well, you should reconsider that." And I was like, "Okay, I'll think about that. I've never considered being like
Huge thanks to
a
this
track."
guy for
Yeah.
asking this.
Yeah, the one, like, compliment, because I would've just, like, continued, tried to be a concept artist, but I loved his class, and I learned so much, and it just, I don't know, changed the way that I looked at 3D, and we did have teachers that generally wanted us to go more into environment if we were gonna go into 3D
Mhm.
if we were going to go into 3D, just because, more jobs, generally, they're like, "Well, if you wanna get work, right after school, you're gonna get a better chances of getting a job if you go into environments than characters." But of course, I'm that person that's like, well, I'm gonna keep working on characters because it's like if I only have characters in my portfolio, and this is what I'm gonna grow in. Like this is what I'm gonna be good at. If I keep doing environments, then I'm gonna actually become an environment artist, not a character artist, and I want to be a character artist. So I'm gonna do what I want to do,
That,
and I think it worked out pretty well. So
that's cool that you went for what you love and not where you have more possibilities to get a job. Phew, let's go for the next one. What was your first paid job as a 3D artist?
my first actual paid job would be picture plane imaging. I was actually working for my friend's indie studio beforehand. He was a amazing concept artist, and he started his own studio. Experiences pays for itself, like that's fine. And because he was a really close friend, so it was an exciting thing. And he did end up releasing a few indie games. But my first
Oh,
actual paid job, yeah, that was picture plane imaging, and I was there for about like I wanna say about 3 years, which I didn't intend to stay there that long. But I really enjoyed, like, everything that I was learning there and trying to also figure out, like, what studio I would actually enjoy joining afterwards, because I wanna make sure that wherever I was working, I actually wanted to be there, and it wasn't just, like, because I needed a paycheck kinda
mm,
thing.
cool. Yeah, sounds very cool. And yeah, I heard so many guys who starting as indie, making their own games with friends. That's actually also my story. how I started.
Nice.
Just a bunch of friends trying to make something and having fun.
Mhm.
Yeah. Maybe you have some stories behind your artwork, so some special challenges you've been working on. You could maybe share your portfolio screen and can talk a bit about your amazing artworks.
Yeah, let me do that.
Yeah, maybe there's some special ones from the past that you've been working on. Even the ones
Yeah,
that you made maybe 10 years ago, they look so good. I don't know.
thank you. I think probably this one I learned a lot from it, and I think this kind of really pushed me into how what my, like, aesthetics are and my style is. It was a concept sketch from Paul Kwan, who's, like, a phenomenal artist, and I got to work with him at Riot
Mhm.
and, like, loved working with him. But his sketch was so inspirational and just so cool that I really wanted to make it into 3D. This was a hard one for me to do just because I feel like, 1, I had to figure out, like, all the colors. I didn't know where I was gonna go, so I had a bunch of, like, color tests
Mhm.
that I was doing to try to figure out, like, what she could look like. So she went through a bunch of, like, edits. But, my old, mentor, Bogdan Gabelko, when I was talking to him, because I was working with him on WoW during this time when I was working on her, but he actually mentored me before I got on WoW, him and his wife, Oля Gabelko, who are, like,
Uh,
phenomenal artists.
so, yeah, and this work is like made 10 years ago. And when you
Um,
dropped it 10 years ago, I'm pretty sure it was real best. Like the quality, it still looks
oh
very cool. And 10 years ago, it probably was like a ticket to Riot or Blizzard instantly.
I was at Blizzard already, yeah. I was
Oh.
trying to incorporate, like, everything that I knew from there and also just kind of find myself. But when I was working on her and I was talking to Bogdan, and he was just like, "Well, if you're going to work on a character like this, you need to make sure that you're rendering everything out, like, as best as you can." So if she has, like, she has a lot of skin, one of her legs. It's like, if I'm gonna do the skin, it needs to be done in a way where, like, it actually looks good and it's not just, a texture kind of thing. And so he made me really like think about putting in the extra time, trying to make it feel special. I don't know. I just learned so much on it and it was such a like big passion project for me. And yeah, like one of the ways that I start working when it comes to sculpts, I tend to like do an ortho and then I just project it onto the model and then I start building off of that. And it's still the way that I work. Um, but yeah, this is one of those that was like super challenging, but super fun. And I really
Mm.
spent like, I don't remember how long this one took, but I spent a lot of time trying to make sure that it actually hit the quality that I wanted to
Mhm,
hit rather than
mhm.
be like done with it.
Yeah, when you're like looking for quality and it's like your learning curve, you're not looking
Mhm,
at how much time you spent on it. And
mhm.
this one looks really cool. Worth all the
Thank you.
efforts.
Thank you.
Oh, and this one I think you have on your avatar, the elven girl, another
Oh
one.
yeah. This is the same one. It started off with this one. This was a Castanic bust from Terra Online, which like
Oh.
has beautiful aesthetics. And this is one of the characters that I was learning how to hand paint on originally, because like I came from sculpting, and so originally I was like, well, I'm going to sculpt everything, and I'm going to bake things, and then I'm like use normals and spec. And I was working with Bogdan on this, and he's like, okay, but now you need to look at this flat just diffuse only. And so it was such a new concept to me back in the day. And so this one was the original. And then I wanted to try out like a new color palette. And this is Runjaz. I don't know if I say his name correctly, but he's phenomenal artist, also super, super just love his work, super inspirational. And I always use her as my icon. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna like use her just to test things out on and just to see how these colors work. And I end up really liking her. And so she just, I don't know, I've kept her around all this time. And so another part of me is like, well, maybe I should do like a third version and test out different materials and different colors
Yeah,
and
why
just
not?
like evolve her.
Cool. And this is like Alisa, or how this girl been
Oh,
calling
Alice?
yeah, the cute one. looks so amazing, and there's so many Easter eggs. I've been exploring it a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, this was just like a personal fun. I think this was after I left Blizzard and I was doing Patreon, and I was doing
Oh,
mentorships, and I was actually in conversations with Riot, joining them whenever they had an opening again. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna make like a quote quote champion pretty much. And so this is like Allison, she has a mount. And I was like thinking of her abilities and everything. I think the first one that I started doing the gifts with as well. And so I really loved being able to see how the character or how the textures were progressing. And so I ended up like literally just continuously keep doing this. But
oh.
yeah, it was really fun,
And there's
just to develop her and
hearts in the design everywhere, little bunnies on the ears of the helmet.
yeah,
It's very
yeah,
cool. I love the small details a lot. Like it's not a usual one, but you put like a lot in
mhm,
this character with ideas and so on.
yeah. And then I just did like a very basic idle animation with a
Mm.
butterfly on a path that's just moving around because why not? Because I did
Yeah,
similar stuff like that on WoW. So I was like, well, I'm gonna use these skills since I already have.
yeah, that's really cool. Small animations adds a lot to the
Yeah.
scenes, like alive now, not just staying
Mhm,
still. That's very cool.
mhm. Thank you.
Uh, I'm pretty sure like everyone saving your gifts with stages.
Thank you. Yeah, I made the new post just the other day because I have a lot of friends who've like over the years told me they use these because they're just helpful because there weren't a lot of like educational material for hand painted stuff back in the day, especially like 5, 6 plus years ago. And so I wanted like I had a blog that I was using to put all them, but they always just get lost. So I went ahead and just put everything together in one spot that I'm just gonna update, so that way if anybody ever wants to grab them,
Mhm.
like, they can just find it all in one place, and then, I definitely get very lazy about explaining some of these, but others, I try to, like, actually write everything out in a very short, easy way, but I know a lot of these are like, "Oh, this was black and white, and now it's color, and now it's done," which I know doesn't explain a super, super lot, so I'm trying to do, like, slightly better job at going over some of these. Yeah.
Mhm. Cool. Yeah. From those gifts, you probably already can make like a book with your arts and workflows. So many of them, and yeah, cool. So you've been working on World of Warcraft. What was the hardest thing about creating a legendary weapons? Yeah, like made a lot of them.
I think the hardest thing about, like, working on WoW in general was you had to do everything, and I'm actually not a strong concept artist. And so, like, designing weapons for me was really hard, but I had the ability to work with artists on these, which I like Thomas Yip worked on this one, and he made the concepts for it, and, like, I loved, he was one of our senior character artists, and so he was just so used to doing concepts that anything he did was just amazing. So this was a period in time where I think some of the seniors were literally like, we're just doing all these concepts and then everybody can just take whatever they want to work on. And this was such a cool design. And it was just so exciting to work on. But it's like, yeah, we had to do the usually the concepts, except not for this one, fantastically. But like the modeling, the UVing, the texturing, the
Mm-hmm.
color variants, the effects, the animations. It's like this is where like the Alice's butterfly comes into play. It's like these are little flies that are just flying around on paths. So it's like I had to set all that up, set up the scrolling textures. You had at that point about 3 days to be able to make a weapon and everything that goes into it. And so I hope the timing is different now, but back then that was a lot to get done in
That's
such a short
tough
amount of
for
time.
3 days, and all to
Yeah,
make all the
especially
explorings, to like think about skins
yep.
maybe, and then texture it, maybe go back on
Mhm.
some parts and so on. Yeah, that's not easy to do, and you did a lot of them, and they look so good. I think so many people still using them for transmogs because those, at least the Dead Knight, there's like no
Uh-huh.
better ones. I think yours was
Oh,
one of the best till our days.
Yeah,
So cool.
these are super fun to work on, and I learned a lot, and it took a long, it actually took a really long time for me to, like, grasp the style, I feel like, because, since I come from sculpting, I I was already really used to using sculpts, and that would be, like, my base, and then I would draw on top of that, especially, like, this one. um, like her because I started off with like did the anatomy, did a base mesh because like back in the day you wanted to do a base mesh that you could like subdivide and create something out of. Now it's like you just dynamesh everything and it's great. Um, but like I used this and then I baked out some extra maps, and then it's like this is the actual base with everything combined, and then I painted like all on top of it, which this is like very contrasty. I wouldn't do this now, but I was so used to having to do sculpts in order to have a hand painted texture. We're just essentially illustrators that are using 3D canvases. And so for me to better understand it, it's like really learning the fundamentals correctly. Some time for me to like fully grasp how to hand paint and how to just understand how materials work, how lighting works. I really love that I was able to do that on WoW and not have to feel like I had to sculpt absolutely everything. Because yeah, when we
Mm,
had 3 days, I was like, "Okay, well, if I have to make a sculpt also of, like, every weapon and everything in X amount of days," it was really
yeah,
hard
an
to be able to,
effect
like
and animation. Yeah, sounds crazy, but
yeah.
probably fun.
It was a wild ride, but it definitely levels you up a lot faster, especially when you're doing stuff like weapons every 3 days because it's like you're having to do, like, weapon, and it just keeps going. And so it's like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
cool." When you
Yeah.
get, like,
And then you're
30,
only
40
thinking about weapons, how they been made, what you can make for weapon. Oh, let's jump to the next one. What was the most difficult character you have been working and why?
It would probably be the paper craft skins. Nunu Willimp would be like the hardest, specifically Willimp, because this was just like a brand new skin line that Christopher Singh and Allison Ho like they pitched to the team, and then our pod ended up getting it, and we are like, well, how do we make origami skins and still make them look
Very
cool?
unusual one.
Yeah, and then, Sasha Nikanov, like, he concepted amazing versions of them, and then it was like, "Okay, well, this is super cool, but I have no idea how we make this." And so having to, like, figure out how to make everything look like paper, like, putting in crinkles, making it, like, visually interesting, it took some time, and definitely because, like, Willem is so weird. It's like, he has 4
4
arms,
arms
um
and a
yeah.
tail and many
Yeah,
details,
big head.
horns, all in.
Yeah, so he was definitely a lot to, like, figure out, and it's like, how do I make it look like paper? And then it's like we're, like, making him kinda look, beat up here, so you'd see, like, there are pieces of paper that are ripped and, like, the colors kinda coming off, but still making it look cool with, like, the golds where he kinda feels
Mm,
just, like, shiny and visually interesting, so he also has, like, other materials and not just, like, pure, like, flat paper. Nunu is a
cool.
little bit simpler because he's just a little boy, so simpler
Yeah.
design.
Yeah.
Anuvia was also really cool, had a crazy thing with her wall where it's like all these are just individual pieces, and then my amazing VFX, artist, Ollie McDonald, like, he just, set it up so that way anytime you place it down, they just kind of move around, so it's never the same, but this was just like, "Okay,
Oh.
how do we make paper and make it visually interesting, but also not make it, like, super, super fight with everything," and just trying to make sure all the colors work together, and yeah, just it was a crazy project, but definitely really, really fun and just a lot.
Yeah, probably after this one, you can make anything out of paper, any kind of character.
Yeah, yeah. During this whole project too, like we had an origami little thing with the team or with our pod that was working on this. And so we were doing a bunch of that. And then after that for like months, I was just making cranes during meetings because I was like, why not? Let's do that whole 1,000 crane thing. And so I had a whole drawer full of just cranes that I would every time I'd make one, I'd just stuff it in there.
That's cool. Really nice experience with paper material for all your
Hmm.
life to remember how to make
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay, let's go for the next one. What was your favorite character that you've been working on?
I think my favorite one is actually Spirit Blossom Ari. I used to not be a super huge Ari fan, which is really funny now. But this character specifically, like the skin line, this was a new skin line that we were working on. And I got to work with Oscar Vega, who's like a phenomenal artist, and loved everything about her. Loved the design, loved the colors. I love where we're going with her, like narrative wise. I've talked to so many Ari players online just through like Twitter and stuff where
Ooh.
because they have very specific expectations for her. They're very passionate about her. I wanted to work really hard to not to disappoint them. And because I know what
Yeah,
happens when you
yeah.
disappoint RE players. And so absolutely loved the experience of working on her. She was definitely really interesting because she was one of the skins that I was doing when I just became a lead and I was waiting for my backfill to be able to join the team. So I was still full time on my pod, full time lead, trying to do both. This was
Mhm.
pre-COVID, where I was like running to a meeting, from the meeting, running back to my desk, trying to work on
Yeah,
her, running
the
back to the
life of
meeting,
the
running back.
lead.
Yeah, it was hard. And when COVID started, it became easier because then during meetings, I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna work. So that definitely helped me like be able to get everything done. But she was one of the ones where I was like, well, this is technically like my last skin with my pod that I was on for so long. And I was just like, yeah, let's just do everything. And so we would just have like outlandish ideas where we're like, yeah, so she's gonna have, a secondary form, so we want to do
Oh,
that. And then we were like, well, we also want to have like a Fox version of her, which is down here somewhere. There it is. And I was like, yeah, let's totally do that. That sounds great.
so
And then
it's
it's like
like
her
three
recall pod.
forms in one.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And this is also the one where we're like, hey, how about we try to do like chromas internally for her? And Oscar did the concepts for them, and then I ended up doing all of these. And then it's like all her tail stuff, because originally her tail we were just gonna have it like as if it's like fur and it was stationary, but then we had players during PBE, they were like, it'd be really cool if it scrolled. And we were like, "Oh, no," because her tail wasn't super, super, super set up for scrolling. I did kind of push her UVs that way, but they weren't, like, as clean as, I made them for ASU, and so I had to, like, play the game of, doing offset in Photoshop and trying to, like, match these up perfectly when they're scrolling, and then, of course, it was, like, for her main form and for her fox form, and it was wild, but very fun, and then she has her 9 tails, and she has her one big version of her tail, and then, yeah, the box
Ooh.
itself, which very educational because whenever we were working for ASU RE, I was like, all right, well, I'm not making multiple tail UVs anymore. Like, I'm just gonna literally take this big tail and I'm gonna shove it into one of the others. So that way, like, it automatically gets done because it's too much to jump between like 20
Mhm.
different maps. So it was a very educational and I loved it. I loved working on like all the different colors, all the different chromas, because it's like you get a different feel for all of these. They all feel like
Mhm.
Spirit Blossom, like all these
Ooh.
different ways. So yeah, definitely my favorite skin to work on.
Yeah, and those animations with tails looks really cool.
Yeah, yeah. And I know Ari players like really want nice fluid animations with tails because base Ari was definitely on the older side. And
Mm.
so we like did our absolute best to try to make this as smooth and just aesthetically pleasing as we could.
And you did extremely well with it. Very cool one. Phew. I jump to the next one. The most difficult material to texture. Maybe it's fur, hair, metals, or something else.
Most difficult material, I'd probably still say fur. Fur is a pain in the butt. I did a
True.
lot of fur on
True and
her,
real.
which she was, it was definitely painful. I think the best way that I decided I like doing fur is making sure that I do it in grayscale so that way I can like pay attention to the values and really pay attention to like how things are laying because it's like I want like right now, I mean, I want to like fix all this because I see things, but it's like I want to make sure that it feels nice and soft and fluffy and it doesn't like stand out too much. I feel so bad for some of those areas because I was like, I
No,
did as best
it
as I
looks
could.
cool. It looks good. It reads like fur, not like something else. And when I've been painting some form for the first
Hmm.
times. I always had results like foliage or something like this because it have a very special shape probably that goes like diagonal many times, so it's not like
Mhm.
leaves or something, and it's
Yeah.
fluffy. Yeah, it's very challenging one to get to it, and just need to try many times and you will be there.
Yeah, I definitely, I started doing projection from 3D Code to Photoshop, and I would, turn it on to colorproof mode and then just have it grayscaled, and
Mhm.
so I'd work with it that way to where I can see it in grayscale, but I'm working with the color underneath, and so I would actually just, like, zoom out, paint some, smudge some, zoom back in, zoom back out, and then
Mm.
I'd project it back onto the actual model, and like, that was actually a pretty successful way of doing for me here because my brain was just, like,
Mhm.
tired of painting it within 3D Code, and it's like and that's one of the things, it's like I jump between painting and Photoshop and 3D Code. It's like whatever is working the best for me and whatever helps me.
Yeah, so the form, it's a very difficult one. Remember this, guys. But if you try a lot, you'll get there.
Mhm.
That's all the secret. Is there anything you would like to improve on your older artworks?
Oh, everything, all the time.
Uh,
I mean, even just looking at Soraka there for a second, I was like, "Oh, I don't like some of this."
that means you grow a lot and see new things.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, it's a good reminder because then you go back to that, you're like, "Ah, yes, I can do better, and I will do better." And so, it's like, even, like, my old Star Guardians, which it's like, I super, super loved working on them, but every time I look at them, I'm like, "There's so much stuff that could be better." That I could have, like, done. So I honestly it's like I would touch on, like, everything, and this, of course, isn't even
Mhm.
all of my stuff because 'cause I'm too lazy to post everything, but I'm trying to be better. I would always have something that I can correct on these.
It's cool. Yeah, same happens with me, but probably even maybe 2 or 3 weeks is enough. I am getting back to my work and like, I had to make it better. I could make it better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all experience and you can make
Mhm.
it for the next one. So growing
Yeah.
non-stop.
I have
It's cool.
I have a similar thing with that. It's like anytime especially when I'm doing personal work and I jump back to it, like I'll make it better because usually if I don't look at it for a while, like there's projects where I will work on for years where I'm just like, oh, I feel like working on this, and then I forget about it because I start like 50 other projects that I'm working on. And then I look at it again, and I'm like, oh well, now I need to make this as good as I am currently. So then I like rework a bunch of stuff. And I would do this with certain models like every single year. And on like work stuff, some of these skins, like we would get them done pretty early in our timeline and just how like we stack them up, they weren't like up to PBE. Like back in the day, everything was up to PBE. So that was always an adventure. But the rest of these, like we got a lot better about production and making sure that stuff got done ahead of time. And so a lot of the time it's like when Splash had finished their Splash, I would take a look at Splash and I'd be like, okay, well, what can I add here that Splash has? And then that'll give me a chance to kind of like make things better. Like even for her, like the detail that she actually has. Let me see if I can zoom into this. Uh, like, the detail she has here isn't the detail in the concept, it's actually the detail that she has in her splash because we end up, like since it splash is always more higher res, like, they have
Mhm.
a little bit more room
Mm.
to make things more realistic and prettier, and so I was talking to my art director, and I was like, "Hey, do you mind if I, like, adjust this to match Flash more so that way they're, 1, more cohesive," because you want things to be cohesive, and 2, it's like it does help elevate the design more, and so it's like, that gives me a chance to make her better, and plus by then I haven't, like, looked at her for a while, and so jumping back onto her, I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just fix anything that bothers me."
Yeah, sometimes taking a little bit off
Mhm.
from the project helps. You like have always bored eyes after seeing the same model for every
Yeah,
day, and then you can
yeah.
add some fresh things that you have in mind, and
Mm.
yeah, it's cool. And
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I fresh eyes are always super, super helpful, and, there are times where back in the day, I was able to work on multiple skins at the exact same time because we just needed to make sure that we communicated with our team, everything was everybody was always on block. So sometimes I was like, cool, well, I'll just model both of these, get these ready, and then I'll texture both of these. And so that way it wasn't like modeling, texturing. It was like modeling, and then texturing. But doing that also helped me like take some time away from one of the skins so I can work on another skin and get like a fresh perspective whenever I jump back and forth. And so I always like doing little things like that. And so whenever a team allows me that much freedom of like coordinating things, I super appreciate it.
Yeah, freedom is a nice stuff for an artist. I think
Yeah,
we,
freedom,
we
trust,
love
I love
it a lot. Let's jump to the next one, and it will be about the next questions about experience and inspiration things. What do you think is the most important skills for being a character artist?
For character artist, I would say anatomy is going to be probably the most important one. But if we're talking about like a hand painted character artist, then I'm going to go with like understanding 2D fundamentals, color and lighting, because like you can make a really ugly model and your textures can save it. And I've seen it so many times throughout like my career. But if you like, especially if you're doing PBR, anything that requires normals, or if you're doing sculpt, it's like you need to make sure that your character actually looks good and is as accurate as it can be. It's like we're gonna have those stylistic changes that we can make, but it's like the underlying anatomy needs to be correct. And I do think aesthetics are really important, because it's like a lot of the time I see people being like, "Oh, this is a character, and it's a female character, and here's her face, and here's her eyes, and here's her nose, and here's her lips, and here's her hair color." And it's like, okay, well, they're just very like they don't stand out. They're very bland. They don't have that like essence where you're like, "Oh wow, this is beautiful." Like it doesn't like enchant you, and you want to create characters that are charming, that have something about them that you like you're staring at it and you're just like can't figure out why you like it so much. And so I think it's really important to have aesthetics, but to have aesthetics, you need to like really like you need to look
Yeah.
at a lot of art. You need to like study other people's work. You just need to really understand what you're doing. And I think that is not something a lot of character artists always do, like female characters specifically back in the day, because I started so long ago, it's like we only had a few character artists who I was like, these are the people that can make female characters like pleasing looking, like aesthetically beautiful, and that would be like Bogdan Gobelko, who I used to just like look at all of his work, or John Troy Nichols, Hazardous, back when he was in the industry. Like I used to study his work so much because he had great aesthetics, perhaps still has great aesthetics. It's like understanding how facial features look, how different eye shapes, how makeup looks, and that's super important for hand painted
Yeah.
stuff because it's like whenever you're painting a character's face, you're essentially just putting on makeup on a character, and that's what it is. And you need to understand like what ethnicity you're going with the character. So it's like they might have to look a specific way. Like Ari, she's Ionian, so she's like East Asian overall. Her features have been all over the place for so long. We finally were able to like rein her in and make her consistent for the ASU. But it's like understanding how her face should actually be. Like it's not a Westerner face. Like she can't have like deep set eyes. Like she needs to have very specific aesthetics. And then the makeup that she would wear would be different kind of makeup than you would put on like a Westerner, just because of eye shapes and different eye shapes and different makeup. They look very different, which is why you can't do like any makeup tutorial online and then hope that you look exactly like the person, because that's not going to happen unless you have like basically an identical face. So I think like researching, learning all these, really studying all this will just definitely help improve you. But yeah, anatomy, aesthetics, super important.
I think Lego characters looks very unique, and each of them have some unique aesthetic that you can say like who is who, and there's 100, I think 50 plus characters in the Lego, and they're very different, like with the face
Mhm.
paintings and makeups and so on. So, and you can recognize like every of them. So it's a huge
Yeah.
work made for it. So yeah, anatomy, aesthetics, keep in mind, guys. And the next one, what makes League of Legends characters look so unique and amazing? Probably aesthetics and stuff.
Honestly, all the passion that goes into making them, whether it's like a champion or a skin, I know it's like back in the day, they used to make these characters so, so fast, and that's why they were kind of like all over the place and they just kind of did whatever. And then in the last like decade or so, I feel like they started to actually being like, oh, we need to be consistent because this is actually a single champion that's wearing different outfits. So we need to be consistent with that. And it did take a lot of work. And so whenever I used to be the lead on the team, it's like we would look over faces to be like, oh, well, hey, we need to adjust this because these are like the features for the specific champion and make sure that they actually read as that champion and making sure that they read like they're from their specific region. I think it's important to try to give them like all their own identity so that way it's not the same face because that's like such a
Yep.
big complaint that we've had and so many different parts of our industry where they're just like, oh, well, it all looks exactly the same. And it's like, well, we don't want it to look exactly the same. We want them all to look different and unique. And so that way people have the choice of being any of these characters. But a lot of work goes into all of this and a lot of passion. Like I tend to always been working with like the most passionate people who love the universe and actually care about like
Yeah.
even for some of these skins, like I might not super love like every single skin that I worked on, or like I don't always love all the characters like Renekton. I'm not a Renekton player, but I enjoyed this a lot just for how like the Hextech Renekton just because of
Mm,
how unique he is. And I just watched a bunch of like alligator crocodile horror movies on the side while I was working on
s-
him. So it was and so it's like even if we aren't necessarily like they're not our main, a lot of the team generally would like find things that they love about the concept and like the skin line or the character. And so it's like, yeah, people are just always doing their actual best for these. And I think that's incredibly important and that really shows.
we can see it. Yeah, for sure. Those characters looks absolutely great. What do you think are the best ways to level up as 3D artist?
The best way to level up, honestly, it is having either amazing friends that are willing to give you hard feedback or having amazing mentors that one know what they're talking about and two giving you hard feedback. And like yeah, working with Bogdan back in the day when he was first teaching me how to do like hand painted work, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm done," and he's like, "No,"
We just
and he's like, "Hold
started.
on, let me do the paint over." Yeah, and then I was just like, I was done, and now I have like 3 full days of rework, but it was always absolutely for the best, and I always learned so much from everything, and people give you feedback for you to become a better artist, for you to grow, for you to like find those things that you need to fix on a model. Like now I love when people give me any feedback that I like miss because I'm like, cool, I can be done with this faster. Because like I got 1,000 other things I need to do and I love this, but at this point I've been staring at it for so long, can't see the problems anymore. So somebody's like, oh yeah, like this material looks off. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I will fix that. Thank you. Thank you for pointing these out. Cause it's like I usually by the end I'll like make a list of everything I need to fix on the character that I'm working on, and do like my own paint over, and then I'll just start knocking things down as I'm doing them. And then yeah, anytime anybody else can just like be like, oh, by the way, you forgot this one thing you should fix. Like I love it because I can be done with it faster. I
Yeah,
don't have to like look for it. But yeah, it's honestly having people who are willing to be honest with you and also just do it in a like a positive critique way, not like where they're trying to make you cry and make you wanna give
true,
up.
true. Yeah,
There's definitely some people don't quite know how to give feedback, and at some point
yeah.
you kind of learn, but it's like, I was also in art school, and I also had the teachers that, like, you put your work up in front of everybody, and they're just like, "What is this crap? You're terrible," and you're just like, "Oh, I guess I am terrible."
That's a terrible teachers, for sure.
Yeah.
If teacher demotivates you, making you cry or something, then the teacher is a crap, not you.
Yeah. That is a very old school way of teaching, and it's literally not the best way. Like, I've worked with so many artists over the years, and I love working with younger artists who are, like, just newer to the industry because they're so excited to learn, and any feedback I give them, it's like I wanna make sure that they know that, 1, they're already doing a
Mm,
great job. Like, here's, like, the things that we can do to improve it, and then, like, give them that motivation and, like, light that fire for them to be able to like push things past their like limit and constantly keep growing. So they have that, like they feel supported. And so they can also take that feedback from me too. Cause it's like if you know for sure that the person you're talking to cares about you, you're gonna take that feedback a lot easier because you know they're there to like help you and save you
Yep,
as
yep,
opposed to like make you feel like crap.
true, true. Very nice words. Yeah. And the good students also motivates the mentor to do the better job and
Mhm.
like giving more comments and just push the artwork. It's very motivating also. And
Mhm.
always nice to see these efforts out of energy from student, you know. Let's go for the next one. Your sources of inspiration.
Inspiration's a hard one because it's like back in the day, I had a lot of inspirational artists that I always looked up to, like Bogdan Gabelko and Vadim Baklachov. I actually forget Vadim's last
Um,
name all the time.
y-
Flipgate Central. Vitaly Bulgarov, like phenomenal artists pushing themselves so much. And yet John Tory Nichols, like I loved still love all of their work. And I would just be constantly like on CG Hub back in the day and DeviantArt back in the day, and then Artstation when Artstation popped up. And it's like I would look at work there all the time, and it would just motivate me to want to just do better and become a better artist because I was just so inspired by like people's incredibly beautiful work. It works a little bit differently now because it's like I don't have time to be like motivated or inspired. It's like I just have to do the thing, which I'm actually good at working under stress. So I'm like one of those people when I'm stressed out and I have a tight deadline, I'm like, cool, I will I'll pull like 16-hour days because if this is what takes, like this is what it takes, and my brain can like really get into the zone and really push through and do a lot of work. You just have to do what you have to do once you're in the industry. For personal work, it is a little bit harder. Like I'll do a bunch of just like 3D sketches and just a lot of stuff that I don't finish. I try to create goals for personal work. Like if I'm trying to grow at something, something like if I do get like inspired by some kind of design, I'm like, oh, I want to make something like this, or I see a tool that's new and I'm like, oh, I want to try this out. Like I try to use those things to like force myself to keep myself accountable. But a lot of the time it's like with being an adult and having a full-time job, it's like other things ends up taking over and I'm like, okay, cool. I have to
mhm.
work on work stuff more. So it's like I'm gonna push this aside or it's like, hey, life stuff came up. So I don't have time to do like personal work as much. So it kind of falls off. And so then like 3 months later, I'm like, oh yeah, I was making a character. I should probably get
Yeah.
back to it.
The crazy life of adult artist.
Yep.
That's not easy. You're literally taking 3 jobs at once. Yeah, I need to check this artist, the Bogdanov. I actually never heard and I feel that I miss out.
I'm
So yeah.
sure you have. He doesn't post a lot, unfortunately.
Mm,
I think his old DeviantArt, which I hope he still has up, has
yeah.
most of his work, but he's like phenomenal artist and him and
Yeah.
Vadim and all them and
Yeah.
Alloyeds like
Yeah, I
forever
heard a lot
ago.
about Vadim. I following him, also the Vitaly. But yeah, I need to check this Bogdanov guy. Very curious now. Who's that
Yeah,
guy?
him and
Oh.
Vadim, both also worked on Titan together, and so it's
Mm,
like, they're the artists because I loved Blizzard back in the day, and so and then I love them because I discovered them, I think Dominance War 4 is where I discovered all of them, because this was the time where I was like,
yeah.
"Should I become a character artist?" And then my teacher was like, "Oh, look at this contest that, Polycount is doing," and that, like,
Mm,
opened me up to a whole new world, and then I just, like, stalked everybody's entries, and, their work were some of the best, and then, yeah, like, Vadim won 1st place, and his design skills and modeling skills and everything are just like he is so good at what he does. Anything that he touches is always like brilliant. So
yep,
I
yep, that's
love
true.
studying their work. Mhm.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of job, and I think he's posting like reels and many arts like almost every day. It's not easy to do, having the main
Yeah.
job and so
Same.
on. And those dominance wars, I think how many years ago that was.
This was probably like back in 2009, I think.
Ooh,
Yeah, forever ago. So, so old.
back in my days. Yeah,
Yeah, back in my day.
cool. That was about the day when your artist's dreams come true.
I think it's probably Blizzard when that happened because So I was at Picture Plane Imaging for about 3 years. I didn't intend to stay there that long, and I actually ended up putting in my 2 weeks. I made a whole thing where I was like, "Okay, I saved up enough money, I'm going to rework my entire portfolio, putting in my 2 weeks." So I quit my job. Um, I was living on my own,
You went all in.
went all in, completely reworked my portfolio. Like, this is when I was working with, like, Bogdan and Ola, and they're helping me understand hand painting better because, like, we started conversations of like, "Oh, well, where do you wanna work? Like, what style do you like?" Because I was like, "I don't know if I wanna work on, cinematic stuff or game art stuff," because at Picture Plane, I was working with a lot of cinematic stuff, a lot of V-Ray stuff, and so I really enjoyed being able to, like, look at a lot of blur assets. And so I had a conversation with somebody, and I realized that game art, I think, is like what I would most likely enjoy the most at the time, especially because I knew Blur had like insane hours back in the day, which I mean, I still like to occasionally pull insane hours too, but now I do it on like my own decision. For Blur, I heard that they had so much work and they just had such fast turnaround times, and I was like, I've been doing this for so long. I would love to have like some kind of like home life. And so I ended up, yeah, switching, getting into like hand painted, really working for that. I started my conversations with Blizzard probably like I want to say I quit at the end of the or sorry, beginning of the new year. I think it was like January 2nd or something is when I quit or put in my 2 weeks. And then that first 6 months is when I was working on stuff. I think March, I think after I posted my either Castanic or my, Lumbering Oaf, that's when Blizzard, like, contacted me, and we started having conversations, and then, yeah, I ended up flying out there, doing an interview with, like, a 20-person character team, an interview with
Oh,
literally 20 of them, and they were amazing and so rowdy, and ended up working out, and so I started, I think somewhere in July. But yeah, that was probably where like my dreams come true kind of thing. Cause it's like I never thought that I could work
that's
for
super
Blizzard
cool.
because yeah, I was in Texas from like 7 until then. So
You
I don't
need
know, the
to
whole
like move to the California yet, Arvin.
yep, yep, had to relocate to Irvine. I never
Mhm.
wanted to live in California because California is so expensive. And it's just I never had, like, the best mindset about California, but I was like, "Well, if I move for anybody, it's gonna be Blizzard," and ended up moving for Blizzard, and it's funny because my previous studio, Picture Plane Imaging, their main headquarters are actually in Santa Monica, and so when I went, like, back to, like, tell them goodbyes because I was moving, and they're just like, "Oh, how much is your apartment gonna cost?" And I was like 4 times more than I pay here, pretty much. And so we laughed about it because all of them, like, moved from California over to Texas because cheaper.
Mm.
And so it was just funny, but I definitely love working here. Everything is possible. It doesn't matter how big of a dream it is absolutely doable. There's so many people that get amazing opportunities. The amount of times that I've seen, like, interns join Blizzard or Riot and stay there as artists until they're, like, forever. It happens all the time. So you don't have to be like a special kind of person to be able to work at these companies. It's like
Yeah,
everybody has this
yeah,
opportunity. And so, like, always keep shooting for it.
yeah. Just need to be very passionate. Have it as your dream, probably. Yeah, I had a dream for like 15 years. I just started doing 3D because of World of Warcraft. I wrote it so much, and I think it took me like 14 years before I touched the World of Warcraft last year. So my dreams come true, and I touched it and the League and Warcraft. And it's
Mhm.
also happened when I throw all my past things because I've been doing more of like studio outsourced things and never had a chance to go like full time for my own arts and been doing just managing job calls and so on. And then I just closed everything, and the studio took 1 year after this burnout, doing absolutely nothing, only playing video games. And then I made a comeback and working on portfolio just like from scratch and working on skills, and then I've been contacted.
Yeah,
That's
that's
how
wild.
it happens, and I
Yeah,
haven't expected. I didn't have any expectations. I just been working and doing what I love, and yeah, that's how.
and that's always the best.
Yeah, what's the difference between senior artist and principal artist? Like, what changed for you?
So senior and principal are gonna be probably different at most studios because everybody just has their own descriptions of it. The way that I look at artists, when I was a manager is like you have an associate artist, their main job is to just level themselves up, to learn the skills to do the art. As a mid artist, you're like, okay, you already have some pretty decent skills. You're still leveling things up. You're probably like helping your team slightly more. You're being a bigger voice. Like it's still about you, but you're starting to kind of reach a little bit and help others. When you're senior, you're already like very competent in your skills. Like you know exactly what you're doing. You need minimal feedback. You'll still get feedback because everybody always needs feedback because you look at something for like 30 hours,
Mhm.
and then you're just like, oh, what's wrong with it anymore? um, so it's like, but you need like minimal hand holding. You're a lot faster because you already know, like you problem solve faster. And a lot of our work is literally just problem solving because whenever you're starting out, you're like, oh, I don't know how to light this, or I don't know like which shade of red this should be, or how where the shadow should be. As like you level up as a senior, you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly how to light this. Or like, I think there's two ways that we could do this. Let me test out both to see which one works best. But you're able to solve these problems a lot faster, which gives you more time to be able to help out the rest of your team, to do more mentoring. And then as a principal, you just need to be able to do everything. Um, and so it's like that deals also with mentoring and specifically being able to mentor like younger artists because
Mhm.
younger artists just have a lot more to learn and you have to figure out how to work with the goals that they have. Because it's like if I'm working with like a senior artist, I'm really working with a mid artist, that's very easy because I'm like, cool, I know where we need to polish your skills. With an associate artist, somebody that's brand new or an intern, I'm like, okay, we have a lot. Let's figure out like what the big things we should be doing. And so as a principal, you're also it goes into the leadership for us. Like as a principal, I am allowed to still manage people, deal with art direction, deal with pipeline, deal with like figuring out styles, deal with like setting up teams, like literally everything. You're pretty
Oh,
much like, here's a problem, figure it out. That's what a principal is.
it
But
sounds really
with
like art direction already.
yeah, it's a similar thing, and the thing is, it's like we especially when your team only has a certain amount of people, it's like you wear a lot of hats, and so you just end up doing whatever is necessary, and depending on, like, your team's level of trust, it's literally like, "Here's the thing we want, figure it out," and I love that because, back when I used to just be, like, a mid or senior or whatever, it's like I had tasks and I did the tasks, and I had an X amount of time, and it was very, very structured. And once I became like even just a lead, it was like figure things out. And so I had to like learn to be like, oh, okay, I can do these and this and this and this. And on like R&D projects, there's a lot more. There's just a lot more to figure out and to test out and to like just self manage yourself. Because it's like even though I have an amazing manager and like there's certain things that
Mhm.
I want to grow in, and we're like, hey, let's do these things to grow in these areas. For me, it's like here's this problem that we want you to figure out, and I'm like, cool. I will do whatever I need to do, and I will structure myself in whatever way to do that. But you're pretty much like everything, whatever the team needs, and you're not the person that's most important. Your team is the most important, and that's like same thing when it gets to senior. As a senior, it's not about you anymore. It's about your team and the other artists and being able to help them. Like I had an amazing principal that I used to work with, Pierre Ogata. He's still at Riot, and he's with our Singapore team and but back in the day, it's like I remember he was mentoring me and another artist, and he'd just be like, "Oh, give me the stuff that you don't want to work on." And I was just like, "That is so nice," because he's like, "Yeah, I don't care what I do. Like, you go pick the stuff that you want to work on and you enjoy the most, and just give me whatever else is left." And that's like such an amazing mentality. And I've always tried to make sure that like that was something that I was growing
Yeah.
in because like at first I was so excited. And I was like, "Yeah, I want to work on this and this and this and this and this." And by the end, I was like, whatever, like, I literally can figure out how to like whatever I'm working on, regardless of what it is. There's going to be some kind of challenges in there that I'm going to end up like enjoying a lot. And just the journey of like making the artwork or whatever, like I'll find some kind of like passion or love and just an experience with it. And like I'll keep that with me. And that's so I love that. But yeah, principles, problem solvers of everything and anything. Like I know there's more like structured studios where it's like you might have very specific tasks. But I do love like the wild card kind of things, which is what I get to do. And I love that because I am like, if I am trusted and you
Yeah,
just tell me what you want, like I'll figure it out. And I love that because it gives me so many different ways to problem solve so many different things. And yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah, but I know not every artist want to go for it because you are a little bit out from art, and yeah, not everyone wants it.
It's definitely challenging. Like I actually do get to do a lot of art, which is fantastic. But it is definitely a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility. And I think a lot of people kind of don't always understand that because it's like I know people are like, "Oh, I want to be senior." I'm like, if you want to be senior, that's a lot of responsibility you have to take on and understand that you're going to be like held accountable for things. You can't just have the title and none of the work and the responsibility that comes
Yeah.
with it. And so it's like the people who want to be art directors, whenever they're just like, oh yeah, I want to be an art director. I just want to like be in charge of a
Mm.
project. It's like, no, you don't. It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
You can't.
probably their direction role comes for those who don't want it but doing a lot, and they become art directors because they already doing so much and know everything for project. Often happens.
Yeah, it's so much responsibility, and so the higher you get in your roles, and like I said, it's not for every studio, but it's like there is more responsibility, and you have to be able to take that on, and not everybody is able to want to do those things. Because yeah, it's like if a studio offers like senior two, and if senior two is a role where you can just be like heads down, mostly just literally producing work and not doing literally everything else under the sun, like that might be a better role. But it is really important making sure you're doing what you actually want and not just like
Yep,
chase
yep,
titles.
yep. Because yeah, you spent all your life there, so you need to have fun with it.
Mhm.
I think that was the best explanation about roles. Never heard a lot about it anywhere. It's very cool. Do you have any plans to get back to the managing roles?
Like mentioned, like I used to be a lead. It was one of those things where Bogdan Gabilgo was actually so he joined our team as a senior, and we actually just had art leads. And we were moving back from having art leads who were pretty much like any discipline, but they're just your manager. So it was really hard to figure out how to like promote people because they weren't your discipline. And then you had like character artists with all different managers, and those managers were just like, well, who's at what level where who gets how does this work. And so we went back to discipline leads. Bogdan became our lead, and he's phenomenal, but he wanted to go into principal, and so we started having those early conversations where he was just like, oh well, I'm going to have you as my backfill. And so I was like, I to stay in the art role. I actually never wanted to go into like a manager leadership role. I really like taking care of people, and I am not afraid of having tough conversations and pushing back with people. And I don't mind standing up for
Mm-hmm.
things. That's one of those things that I made a promise with myself that whenever I became a lead, that like I'm willing to be fired for what I say. Like, I'm going to stand up for people and my values and the values that we're supposed to be upholding. And if I lose my job over it, so be it. But that's just who I am. And
That's
I've
amazing.
always had
Yeah.
that, like, very, very, like, it's so important to me. And so when I became lead for my team, like, I wanted to make sure that everybody had, like,
Yeah.
felt comfortable and trusted and becoming a lead of a bunch of seniors at that time because they're all the people that I've been working with for years. And when I moved into being a lead, it was one of those like, okay, this is going to be like a mind shift for them, and they're really amazing. And so it's like we already had like a trust, and so going into that role, I started to like discover a lot of stuff because we didn't fully flesh out what being a character lead was on skins back in the day. And so being like trusting them, making sure that I'm not changing things up for the sake of changing things up, because why? If something is working, then it's working. And a lot of them already knew like exactly what they needed to do. So it's like softly going in, making sure that they're supported, that they have whatever they need. If they always keep me updated on whatever I need to know. And then once we started hiring like interns and new artists, like those working with them, making sure that we onboard them, setting them up with like
Mhm.
an art buddy as well that can like help them go through the day to day while I'm working on like their careers and whatever like secondary things that can help level them up and for them to know. But I really like love seeing artists grow and creating like a psychologically safe environment because
It's great.
um,
Yeah.
I having an amazing manager is so important. Like a manager can make or break you essentially, because if you have a manager who is not great in a way where they like
Yep.
are mean, like that's gonna wreck your day to day. If you have a manager who is just enough there for you and is just supportive enough to work, but if you have somebody that's like honest with you, which is really important for me, and you feel that you are comfortable enough to be honest with them, like that's amazing because you can be vulnerable. And being vulnerable two ways is, I think, the best way to be able to work with people. And so
Yep.
it's like I've seen artists grow from interns, and it's just crazy to see how much they level
Mhm.
up because of the amount of trust that you have between each other, like the feedback you're able to give each other. If something happens, they're not scared to tell you. They just let you know and you problem solve it together. And that's amazing. And I love
Yep.
that. And I've
Yep.
gotten like so used to being able to do that now that it's like back to one of my main things. Like I wanna like I've done so much art and I want to keep doing some art, but I do want to move back into leadership and be able to like build out huge teams and build out these people and make
Y
sure that like they're literally
Yep.
creating like the best work that they've ever done and that they're just continuously growing and they just are happy because
Yeah.
it's like we're making video games. So
That's cool. And you have all the experience needed for it, and you love to do it. So the guys are very lucky having such a cool lead and manager. It's very
oh,
cool.
thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, I heard about experiences when the lead and managers not that caring and just doing like more a job with task list, and even making some artists demotivated, then it's not very cool for the team. And artists who've been crying after getting comments from their leads, and it's absolutely not how it should be, because it's demotivating for the team. It's not cool for the
Mhm.
project.
Yeah, it's in the same way with teaching because it's like people learn in different ways and not like one thing doesn't fit everybody. So you have to work with everybody in an individual way
Yeah.
that they understand. So it's like when you have direct reports, you have artists that you're trying to level up, whether it's within like their craft skills or just within general game dev soft skills, you need to understand how they function, how they work, and like you need to just know them. They're not like all exactly the same. 'Cause I've seen that
Yep.
where people just treat everybody exactly literally the same and some of them are just like, "Oh, this is just I don't understand what we're doing because this is just not how I learn," kind of thing. And so it's like you have to cater to them. Like I feel the same way with mentoring. It's like you
Yep.
have to cater to your
Absolutely.
mentoree to make sure that you get the best out of them. Same
Hmm.
thing with your direct report. Like you have to cater to them to help support them in whatever way they need it to be able to produce their absolute best. So it's like it is real work. You can't just be like, cool, I'm a lead and that's my title and all I do is go to meetings and it's like
Yep.
that's not how that
Yep.
works.
That's the difference between amazing lead and just a title. Yeah.
Mm.
And same for mentorship. Yeah, I always need to find a special way to work with every student, motivate him, find what he likes, and yeah. For next ones, we'll have some talks about softwares. Is 3D code still worth using in 2025?
Yes, I think 3D coding is an amazing software. I think it's still the best software to paint in. I've tested things out in, like, Substance and Marmoset. I actually really do like texturing in Marmoset, mostly because it's like I like using it as
Mm,
a personal engine whenever I'm doing personal work. But 3D Code, I think, is still my absolute favorite. I can just pop between, like, Photoshop and 3D Code so easily. I have so many friends. I actually have a lot of concept friends that like to use 3D Code for, to get like some sculpting in and stuff for their concepts. So it's really
That's
cool.
great.
Um,
Thank
but
you for
yeah, it's
these
a
words. 3D Code is also my favorite one to go.
yeah,
And people
yeah,
often
it's my favorite.
asking, like which software to use. Like 3D Code is very old one, and not many projects using it. So keep in mind, guys. Yeah, we still using it. We still love it, and it's the best for brush engine and painting in it. Yeah, so happy to hear it from you. um, the next one. Are you using Substance Painter for your artworks?
I test out different software for whatever I need to do to see because they're all tools,
Yep.
to see if I can do what I need it to do. Like, I tend to jump through everything. I still like Marmoset for texturing. I do like Substance for texturing too, but it's like I like mostly baking in Marmoset, and since I would bake there, then they released 4, so then I started using 4 for texturing, and right now 5 has some, uh really cool features that I'm also testing out, but it's like, unfortunately, just have if you are able to have everything and use them for whatever they're necessary, but I mean, Substance does have an amazing amount of, different things that you can do with it, so, yes.
Cool. So yeah, it's like a tools. If something doing the
Mm.
best job with its own things, then why not use it for like baking or sculpting or painting? So yeah.
You're not locked into a tool, especially on your personal time, like, do literally whatever you need to do. Because
Hmm.
I used to go through, 'cause I still use Max because I love 3ds Max. I need to switch over to Blender, but I really love 3ds
Probably
Max.
after the blizzard. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause where I went to school, we mostly used Macs, so I got used to using Macs, so whenever I joined WoW, we had to use Macs, I was like, "Perfect."
Yeah.
At Riot, most people use, Maya, but, like, we're still allowed to use whatever program we prefer to use, so it's like I still use Macs and
Hmm.
just make sure everything else stayed
Yeah.
out in Maya. But honestly, like, yeah, if unless you have a very specific pipeline that's like, you need to do this, 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 and this, it's like you can technically do everything in all these different softwares. You just need to make sure you save things out in the right way for wherever you're having to upload them to or submit them to. And yeah, on personal work, do whatever is needed. Like I used to only unwrap in head SUV layout because I hated unwrapping in Max. But then on WoW, I got so used to it because I was like, this is so, I'm not gonna like get them to purchase Hedis just so I can unwrap this weapon. I'm just gonna do it in Max. It's gonna take like 2 minutes anyways. I think I used Topo Gun for a long time for doing my topology at home, but then I was like, whatever, I'll just do it in Max. So it's like
Cool.
whatever ends up working. And yeah, X normals back in the day when you had to bake
Oh
out
yeah,
normal
I
stuff.
remember this one. Yeah, and about Marmoset, it's very interesting to hear. I actually heard it from one of the lead Riot artists from Singapore. I think it's
Mm.
one of your students. His name Kevin.
Yeah, let's get in.
He been doing some things with Marmoset, and those been looking so great that I also wanted to
Mm.
like research something how to do this.
Yeah, I love Marmoset. I used to primarily, like, bake out my vertex colors because I'd set up vertex colors as materials in Max, and I would just export them and then bake them out in Marmoset, and then I had this whole phase that Bogdan taught me, I learned so much from him, that's why I'm always so thankful, where, I would just set up, like, a black shader, and then I would set up lighting there, and then I would create specular, and then you're able to bake that out with complete maps and then use that as, like, um,
Mhm.
some lighting. It's not I don't think it's actually, like, super, super worth it, but sometimes it's really it is fun to try it out, and it is helpful in, like, certain situations. Yeah, use, like, Marmoset for everything. Not so much AO
That's
because I would
very
just bake out an
interesting.
AO for 3D coat, unless I had a sculpt, like, if I'm doing a personal project and I'm sculpting for it, and if I'm gonna bake out an AO, then it's gonna be in Marmoset because 'cause I'm already forced to
Mhm.
bake out, like, or something.
Using Blender for all my life. And when I
Nice.
needed to do this like 3D Max or Maya actions, I have the softwares. I just been exporting my Blender model there and setting like smoothing groups and everything like it's
Yep,
been made there. And it
nice.
works.
Yeah, honestly,
Mm,
Blender is great. Like 1, it's free, and 2, people make so many plugins for it that are so cheap
mhm.
that it's like you might as well just do that. And like my only reason I'm even still in Max is because I love edit poly within my modifier stack, which I'm sure there's somebody somewhere that probably made the exact same modifier somewhere, or maybe they will one day, and that'll make my life easier. But it's like my weird thing that I love about Max so much that I don't want to leave it just because of that. But it's like, yeah, Blender's amazing. Like my husband used to be, he's a concept artist. Well, he's a game developer in general because he has his own studio and knows like all disciplines at this point. But he used to use Max and then he switched over to Blender and that like completely changed everything. And he's so excited
That's
about it. And he
interesting.
has so many things there. And so he's always trying to get me to like make the switch. And every year
Yeah.
I'm like, I will find time and I will do this.
Yeah, that's interesting. In past, people been blaming the blender, but now
Yep.
it's other times.
Yeah, now everybody's into it.
That's
It
cool.
is really crazy.
Yeah, the next question, we already know the answer, but who knows? Your software choice for 3D modeling and why?
Yeah, Max definitely because of my modifier stacks. I grew up using it. I tried to switch over to Maya before, but it was just missing all the things that I needed. And I need to do like 10 different things to get the same thing as I could do with a modifier within Max. So, but I mean, that's for like modeling specifically. If we're talking about sculpting, it'd obviously be ZBrush. For texturing, it'd obviously be 3D Coat and Photoshop technically. Like I just can't live without Photoshop because I also started in the industry before we had any other texturing software other than Photoshop.
Yep, there was no 3D code yet.
Yeah. Yep, you just had to suffer those seams.
Yeah, that was the times. Yeah. Okay. Next one is very interesting, I believe, for a lot of guys. Like, your favorite workflow for making 3D characters, like how it looks.
It really depends on what I want to do because it's like right now in my personal time, I'm taking the time to make sculpts. Testing out different pipelines is one of those goals where I get like, okay, cool, I have to finish this because I want to see if this is going to work. For the most part, if I want to get a 3D model done fast because I'm like, this is my idea, I want it to be a thing. I just go like low poly and then texturing. Generally, the grayscale to gradient method because that's the fastest way for me personally. It keeps my values in check because a lot of the time, if I'm just going straight to color, my values will be everywhere. Like I'll have golds just as bright at like the feet as they are at the head kind of thing. And then I'm like, oh crap, I gotta fix all this. But if I do a grayscale, I see that a lot easier because there's like no other colors that I need to like mentally like envision and actually grasp. Like it's so easy to tell. So I'm like, cool, this is darker down here, this is brighter right here. And of course it depends on like the style because like I have to after leaving the skins team, I had to like adjust my way of thinking because League has such a very specific way of texturing stuff that it's like you want bigger surfaces generally lit because that's what you're going to see in game from so far away. And so it's like you don't always light the edge that you would light in real life. And so my brain, once I stop working on League or whenever I do personal work, I have to like literally be like, okay, now let's light this for real. So it's like this little section will be lit, but this section will be in darkness. And so I constantly have to like correct those things and think about those things. But yeah, it's grayscale and then doing gradients, and I love working with gradients because like half of the time it's like it's a concept that I'm making, and then I'll change the color like so much because I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool if this is like black and gold. But then I'm like, well, what if I add like blue? And what if I change it to like green? And then I have this like whole color variation. I'll like set up all these different like textures with
Yeah.
different colors, and then I'll try to do my best to like stick to one. Or sometimes I literally just like work on two different versions of them. But because I have those gradients set up, like
Mhm.
a lot of the work is already
Yeah,
there.
like making different skins and so on, probably much easier with
Mhm.
grayscale.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I actually explored grayscale probably like 2 years ago or something. It's been at first very boring for me. I have
Yeah.
grayscale outside the window. I'm living in Eastern Europe. There's always grayscale
Yeah.
mode outside, and I was over painting with colors, and
Mhm.
then I try it for a couple times grayscale, then get back to it, then start it again, and then I saw why it's so cool to use with those things, the values. And in past I had issues with materials like making whether same values metal, and now you can do this at the start on your grayscale. It's 10 times easier, so it's very cool workflow to go.
Yeah, and also like a lot of the time I don't wait till the end to test my gradients out. I'll actually start texturing and then I don't know, like 20% in, I'll start actually setting them up to test to see what they're looking like. And then I'll just update them as I go. Like the more that I texture, like whenever I would send my team updates, I'd be like, here's the grayscale version, but here's what it looks like with color. And then you kind of see the progress. So it's like even though still working in grayscale, there's still like I can still already
Cool.
check what color
That's very
works
cool.
with it.
Okay, and now we'll have one part.
Yay.
So, first question, Horde or Alliance?
I know your correct answer is Horde.
Yeah.
Honestly, probably Horde. Yeah.
All right, you passed this one. Now we'll play a small game like till we find your favorite arcane character. We could go for Lego, but there's too many characters, to choose from, and probably will not find your favorite until all the characters name it. It could be too crazy, so we go for arcane, and I will start. It's like Silco or Jace.
Jace.
Oh, okay. So you don't like this bad guy. Okay, then Jace or Singed.
I would still go with Jace, I think.
All right. All in for Piltover. Okay.
Yeah.
Jace or Wander.
Vander.
Okay.
I like the dad.
Yeah, he's very cool and nice guy. Wander or V.
I do like Vander is just so wholesome though. I don't know. That's a hard one. I guess I'll go with Vi. I do really like her as a character, and I like her aesthetics a lot.
Yeah. And she changed it so much in season 2. It's looking very badass. Vi or Echo?
I like Echo's a character a lot too, man. You know what? Echo, yeah.
Cool. Echo or Victor?
I guess Echo.
Ooh, Echo wins. Okay. Echo or Heimerdinger?
Heimerdinger. Love Yordles.
Yeah, very, very interesting guy. And also plays very cool in League. Okay, Heimerdinger or Sevika?
Still Heimerdinger.
Okay. Heimerdinger or Ambessa?
Makes it hard because I love the music video. I guess still Heimerdinger because he is one of my favorite characters to also play in League.
Very unexpected. Okay, Heimerdinger or Mel?
I do love Mel, so I'm going to say Mel.
Yeah, and she's so badass in the League new cinematic. And yeah, very cool one. Mel or Jinx?
I do love playing Jinx. I like Mel for her just character and her general aesthetics. I mean, I like Jinx for her aesthetics, and I do like Jinx's story work and just her growth. And she does feel like the underdog, and it makes you want to save her.
Yep.
So it's a hard one, but if I were to have one of them as a friend, it would definitely be Mel.
That's interesting. I believe like 99% of guys would say Jinx. Cool. Yeah, but Mel is very cool too. Mel or Isha?
Ish is adorable, but I would stick to Mel.
So we have a winner. Favorite character in the Arcane show, the Mel. Cool. It's very interesting. Yeah, I thought it would be something like Jinx or you like some of the main characters. Yeah.
I love the aesthetics that Mel has, and I like her story arc a lot.
And the design she has with the clothes and the things. It's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, definitely.
Next one, fun questions. Very random. And I don't know why I created it, but it could be fun. It just was somewhere from my brain. What art skill could help you survive the zombie apocalypse?
That's so funny because I watch so much horror, specifically so many zombie movies and shows. Um, and I've had plenty of nightmares, and it's gotten to a point where I like normalize them. My persistence, because it's my persistence to survive in the industry and to get to where I want to be. So my persistence to survive would help me within the apocalypse.
That's interesting. Cool. I thought it would
Yeah,
be
very
like,
different answer.
like stick it, walk on
Yeah,
pen or something. Cool.
I'd have to sharpen it first and make it
Yeah,
longer.
yeah. Okay, and we are going to the end. Like, your advice for those who just starting their art path. What would you advise?
Honestly, not giving up because this industry is hard. Art is hard. It takes a lot of time. You have a lot of times where you just fall on your face and things don't work out, and you just have to continuously like keep getting up. Like it's okay to have some time to be depressed about it, cry about it, but always keep getting up because that's the only way that you can make it. The industry is amazing, but it also has a lot of issues, just like every other industry. Nothing's ever perfect. And so it's like taking care of yourself, making sure that like you matter. You need your sleep, you need your nutrition, like go do those things. You do get everything you put into it. So it's like the people who are putting in the 16, 18 hours of work, like unfortunately, it is very good to do that early in your career while you have the energy and just time. Like, and I, a lot of the time during like my early years, like I didn't party, didn't have time for it. All my friends are so used to me never seeing them. And the people who are still my friends are those friends who were like, that's just you and that's fine. And we accept it. And it's like that time I literally was the person who it's like, when I worked at my first job, even if it wasn't everything that I wanted to do, I would come home and I would continue working my portfolio to like 2, 4 o'clock in the morning. I did have way worse sleeping schedules where I slept like 4 or 5 hours. Not great, but it was something I was still able to do earlier in my career. But definitely like dedicating time and really just fighting to get to where you want to be because you can absolutely accomplish it. Like there are those stepping stones that you can take, and it is really important to just put everything into it if this is what you want.
That's a great one. Yeah. Never give up, guys, and fight for your dreams. Yeah.
Mhm.
Very, very true. All right. That was awesome talkings and advices from Katia. Thanks everyone for watching, guys, and see you on the next one. Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye.